Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to the Exoticals Unfiltered YouTube channel. That's right, on this YouTube channel, we will be talking about all the bullshit that I will not be talking about on the regular channel. So, anytime I feel like something is going to get demonetized or, I feel like it's a little bit too much for YouTube, I'm just going to go ahead and bring it over to this channel. This is going to be kind of like an experimental space. This is the first episode of Exoticals After Dark. So, this is my sex series. We're going to be talking about all things sex and things that have to do with sex being very male centered, or how a lot of men sexually fetishize us, and how a lot of guys try to date us specifically so they can fulfill some sort of sexual fantasy they had. But first off, let's start with the basics. Most men are bad at sex. And this is because a lot of men, they don't understand how women's bodies get like turned on and stuff. A lot of men use porn as their teacher. That's how they learn how to have sex or whatever. A lot of young teenage boys are not very educated when it comes to how to please a woman. And so, because most men are porn addicts, they take whatever they've seen on pornography and they attempt to replicate it in real life. This is how you get so many stories of women saying that they don't enjoy sex and things like that. And I actually agree that it's very common for women to actually fake orgasms in relationships, because a lot of times it's easier to just fake it and get it over with than it is to try to teach a man how to please you, because a lot of men's egos are based on whether or not they can perform sexually. So if you try to tell the guy like, oh, hey, I like it when you do this, I don't like it when you do that, a lot of guys will literally get offended by that because they view it as you're saying that their dick is trash, basically. They view it as like some sort of blow to their ego, because most men who have nothing to offer, they define their entire self-esteem based on their sexual performance. And I feel like a lot of men who are sexually immature, they seem to have this mindset that like sex is something that should automatically be perfect. You should automatically like both have an orgasm and it should be that way every time. And I think that that's just not realistic. If you are not even talking to your partner about sex or about what you like or whatever, then how can you expect to have a good time or like please each other? And especially when it comes to the woman, because a lot of articles talk about how most women receive orgasms from clitoral stimulation. So that's basically when the guy is like just kind of rubbing on you on the clit area, as opposed to actually going inside of you or like ramming inside of you, kind of like what you would see on porn. I also think that most men are very selfish in bed because, again, because of porn. Like, they are watching a lot of porn where, like, it's all about the man, or, like, the girl is basically worshiping the guy, or multiple people are just worshiping the guy. So, a lot of men will specifically seek out an MLS woman who fulfills whatever their sexual fantasy is in terms of looks, and then he will expect you to somehow subconsciously replicate his fantasy. And part of why I say that we should decenter men is because no matter what you do, no matter how good you are at sex, no matter how pretty you are, there's nothing you can do to stop a man from still eventually wanting to fuck other women. It doesn't mean that every single guy is just automatically going to cheat. But for me, like, the fact that no matter what I do, no matter how good I look, no matter how nice I am, no matter how many bills I pay, you're still going to want to fuck other women, or you're still going to want to look at porn, then that makes me not want to invest in you whatsoever. That makes me definitely not want to center my entire life around you, or revolve my entire womb and my energy and my faithfulness and loyalty around you, because you're obviously not revolving it around me. But most men, I've noticed, are actually bad at sex, because if men truly were good at sex on average, we would see a lot more women who are just willing to put up with that man for the sake of the sex. But I've noticed that a lot of women are opting out of casual sexual relationships because most men, if you're sleeping with a guy in a casual setting, like you're not even in a relationship, most random strangers, he's not going to care about your orgasm. He's not going to care about your pleasure. He only cares about his own pleasure or his own emotional validation or whatever. And so that's why it's usually not beneficial for girls. And this is why the price of sex workers is going up. Exotical tax. This is why we see a lot of exotical sex workers really getting their bags. I've got some of you ladies in the Discord who are sex workers. Some of you guys are making six figures doing that kind of work. So I'm not mad at it. But when it comes to men being bad at sex, I believe that there are multiple reasons why this could be the case. Number one could be something like performance anxiety. So, because a lot of guys attach their entire ego and self esteem and worthiness to their ability to please a woman and getting her coming back for more, if the guy finds out that like you were faking it or that you weren't really that into it, that's going to destroy his ego. Or maybe he has been told before by other women that like basically he was trash, and so this can lead to performance anxiety. I've noticed something else that actually can be a factor is his past experiences. So some guys do not have any experiences with women. So like I said, I personally believe that most guys are actually incels. I believe that most guys, no matter their financial status, no matter their attractiveness level, I do believe that most guys have to at some point seek out or solicit sex workers in order to get whatever sexual desires they have fulfilled. I do not believe that on average that women are just out here throwing ourselves at men, even the high value men, even the NBA player guys or whatever. I don't believe that on average we're just out here throwing ourselves at these guys desperately being willing to do whatever they want in the bedroom. No, because if we were, then the sex worker market demand would not be as high as it is, and the porn demand would not be as high as it is. So the fact that there's such a huge demand for things like porn and things like sex workers, whether that's strippers or whatever, the fact that there's such a high demand is proof that a lot of men, they are not able to just get that kind of stuff for free. They don't just have women lining up just being willing to do whatever they want. So this is why I say on my other channel that I do believe that most men get their sexual like desires and their sexual standards from porn. And so this is why a lot of women have bad experiences, because they'll be like, oh wow, he was just really violent with me for no reason, and like, I didn't enjoy it at all and it was really painful. And that's because he's literally just copying whatever he saw on Pornhub. Another reason that I think that guys could be bad in bed is due to good old fashioned selfishness. So, a lot of men are naturally selfish. They do prioritize their own pleasure over their partner in a lot of cases, especially if the guy doesn't really care about you on that level. So, this is why I say that generally speaking, casual sex doesn't tend to benefit women unless you are somehow getting paid or, you're getting something really good out of it. I think another reason that some guys, well, a lot of guys are bad at sex is because of lack of foreplay. So, a lot of women, we know that like we need this or whatever. We're not like how guys are. And I'm not saying that women can't be like how guys are, but I do think that as women, we are not socialized to embrace our sexuality in the same way that men are socialized to do that. Like it's very normalized for a man to have sexual pleasure or seek sexual pleasure. That's very normalized. But women are actually shamed for seeking sexual pleasure. Women are shamed for talking about sex or for wanting sex or for wanting to be pleased in the bedroom and stuff like that. A lot of men will go out of their way to call women whores and stuff like that. And so I do think that this can affect women to the point where we don't even get as turned on when it comes to talking about sex and stuff like that, because we have so much shame around our own bodies and around like our own sexual histories and stuff like that. We are judged heavily based on how many guys we're sleeping with and stuff like that. And I feel like gaining sexual experience as a woman is often discouraged, whereas for a man it's encouraged. So it's a double standard. Another reason that most men are bad at sex is poor physical health. Most men don't give a fuck about their health. They literally eat cup of noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they will literally eat beans out of a can and cereal out of a box. So how is that going to help his blood flow? Oh, that's right, it's not. Most guys don't even have the health to keep it up. If I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw something where it was talking about how about 1 in 4 men over the age of 40 has erectile dysfunction. So that's actually a pretty big chunk of men. So let's say there are 4 billion men on this earth. That means at least 1 billion men on this earth have erectile dysfunction. That's a lot. So for a lot of the guys who are asking this question, like why do women not seem to desire sex as much as men? Because a lot of you guys are bad at it. That's why. It's because a lot of guys are literally bad at sex. Literally a piece of plastic can do a better job than a lot of these men. And you don't have to deal with like the mental anguish and anxiety and the cheating and the lies and all this other stuff on top of it. I'm not saying that like women should just totally abandon men or like you shouldn't deal with them unless that helps you and makes you feel good. Then yes, do that. But this is the Exoticals Unfiltered channel. So I do think that there needs to be a conversation about why a lot of these men are bad at sex. It's because, like I said, lots of men, they're not emotionally aware. They don't care. They simply do not care about women as human beings and do not care about our pleasure. Most guys just care about their own pleasure. Physically, emotionally, mentally, they care about you building them up financially. And so I believe that men's selfishness manifests in the bedroom as well. Most guys won't ask you how they can please you or what you like, but they will straight up tell you what they want you to do to them. Or they will just ask you, like, hey, can you do XYZ with me? Hey, can you like give me head? Hey, can you do this? But then those same guys will say that they don't like give head to women or they don't want to do certain things. They don't want to do the exact same thing that they want the woman to do. So I've noticed that some guys, for example, they will want to have like a threesome with two women, but then they would not want to have that with another guy. And I'm not saying they should, but I am saying that this is something that should be talked about because, like I said, it is a double standard. Sex is something that is very male centered. And so I think that we as women can take our power back by taking our sexuality back and saying, hey, I refuse to sleep with a guy who does not meet my standards in my other areas. So if you don't meet my emotional standards, I'm not meeting your sexual standards. If you don't meet my sexual standards, I'm not going to give you any sex. I think it's a very powerful thing when a woman takes ownership over her own body as opposed to allowing a man to kind of convince her and influence her on what to do. Another hypocrisy that I've noticed when it comes to men and sex is, have you ever noticed how a lot of guys, they will shame women who are sex workers. They will shame porn stars and people like that. But at the same time, they themselves are the main consumers of porn. They're the main ones who support the entire sex work industry. But then you want to turn around and call sex workers whores and stuff like that. It's like you guys want whores more than you want your own wives. You guys want whores more than you want relationships. So, if anything, you guys actually respect and pedestalize the quote unquote whores more than anyone else. Another thing I've noticed when it comes to men and sex is their heavy stereotyping of women. So, for example, let's say a guy dated a girl before you where that girl likes a certain sexual position. I've noticed a lot of guys will straight up assume girls like to do it in this position, girls like this, girls like that. A lot of men have such limited experience with women to the point where they think that we are all a monolith. And I've noticed that this manifests itself in terms of sex because sometimes a guy will have sex with you or whatever, or he wants to have sex with you, and he will literally be using his ex as the standard of sex with you. So I don't like how a lot of guys, they use another woman's body as the standard for what you like. And it's like, no, just because your last girlfriend liked when you did XYZ sexually, that doesn't automatically mean that I am going to like it. And I think that a lot of men are such incels and have such low experiences with actual real life women to the point where they literally just stereotype women based on Hollywood and porn because that's the only time they're interacting with women. It's via Hollywood, via porn, and via video games. So they're not actually interacting with a real life human woman. And so I do believe that this affects their sex lives, and this is why we see a rise in lonely men. This is why we see a rise in the demand for sex workers and stuff like that. And by the way, definitely get your exotical tax if that is what you do for a living, because this is the Exoticals Unfiltered YouTube channel, baby. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.